All right, guys, we are back with another Real Talk episode. Today, I want to talk to you guys about ammunition, and I want to encourage people to start at least trying or thinking about this concept that I've started to implement recently, which is sticking with a specific ammo manufacturer, a specific grain weight, and a specific bullet type. For instance, I've tried to switch all of my serious distance training to AAC because it is the most affordable. It's like 60 cents a round on Palmetto State Armory's website. And there's two versions. They have their bullet version, they have the Sierra bullets, which are a little bit more expensive. From my experience, the regular AAC brand bullets are not terrible. They're good enough, and they're accurate enough rather for what I want, and also allowing me to them to be cheaper and allowing me to train more often with them. So that's a big deal. But the reason I want to talk about this is because a while back I made a video, a YouTube short, which again, I know my YouTube shorts, they always bring out the best and the worst comments. Some of them are hilarious, but a lot of them are just really dumb comments. And granted, it was a provocative title like "Stop Buying Ammo." What I explained in the video was, I'm not saying stop buying ammo completely. You shouldn't panic buy ammo. You should try to buy it incrementally over time if you can. If you find it on sale, get some as well. But what I'm trying to say is one of the biggest issues I've had, which we've talked about on the channel a ton, was I have all these different platforms behind me, and every scope, every rifle has a different ballistic performance, right? Like, so I want to become a master of one tool rather than being a jack of all these tools behind me. So what I was trying to explain was when you're especially when you're shooting out the distance. Now I know a lot of people don't have the ability to go to a great range like RPR out in Burnett County. I want to shout them out because they're an awesome range. I love Andrea out there. If you go out there, let them know Ranger Bro sent you, and she might hook you up with a little discount. But not sponsored. I just really love that place. And a lot of people don't have the ability to go to a range where they can shoot out much past 100 yards. Most ranges, including in Texas, there's not that many that are truly like long distance ranges. RPR allows you to shoot out to from 2 to 600 at the gentleman's range. They have a 1,000 yard range. And they also have an ELR like mile long range and like 2,000 yard range. So a lot of people don't even understand where I'm coming from because they've never actually shot out past 50 yards, or if they're going to an indoor range, maybe even 25 yards. So a lot of people don't really get the concept that I'm trying to illustrate, because when you start shooting out to distances, especially with larger calibers like 308, 6.5, and up from there, but even with 5.56, every single bullet you put in that gun is going to have a standard deviation of performance. And so if you're trying to learn the rifle with that optic and that reticle, it's going to be a lot harder for you when you go out to shoot at distance, because if you're using, uh, you know, 55 grain ball ammo FMJ, and you're trying to shoot out to 500 yards and your rifle's zeroed for the 77 grain stuff, it's going to be a lot harder for you because number one, the ammo is very different in its accuracy and its consistency, but also, so it might shoot, 2 inches out of your gun or 3 inches even, whereas the 77 grain might shoot 1 inch or inch and a quarter. But it also is going to just be a different spot of zero. Like if your rifle's zeroed for the 77 grain, then and you go out there and shoot 55 and you aim at the same spot, it's going to hit somewhere else. So it doesn't matter so much until you start going out the distance. But I do think that it's an important topic to discuss, again, especially once you start want to consider like an AR-10 or like a battle rifle platform, or even just taking your AR-15 out to distance. So a lot of people think I got that misconstrued as me saying, "Hey, stop buying ammo. Don't buy into the panic," which I do agree with. Don't buy into the panic. Ammo is best bought incrementally over time because it is very expensive. And so if you're shooting, 200 rounds every weekend, if you can afford it, maybe buy 300 rounds. So you're kind of stocking up little by little and keeping a little bit of a stockpile. That way, if something were to ever happen, God forbid, or we see the government's constantly trying to attack other ways of disarming us because they know they can't just straight up ban guns. It's against the Constitution, although they continually try over and over again. And they did it in the past with the assault weapons ban, but they're attacking other ways. They're suing they're removing the protections from gun manufacturers to not be sued by the families of mass shooters, those victims. And that's just ridiculous because you can't sue Toyota because somebody drove a Forerunner through a crowd. So that is obviously ridiculous, but they're coming at it from different angles. And we see right now, actually, in the news I saw yesterday, Biden's trying to stop Lake City from actually selling to the public. So we're sending ammo all over the world. We're sending it to Ukraine. We're sending it to Israel. And however you feel about those conflicts, I don't really care. Like, we should, as American citizens, it is our right to purchase ammunition. The government's trying to stop us from doing so. But I'm not trying to advocate for anyone to stop buying ammunition. All I was pointing out was, especially once you get out the distance, like my 308 was the main one because I had like 6 or 7 different bullet types of 308 that I had just bought during COVID because I would just get whatever I can get my hands on. At the time, I hadn't had a lot saved up, so I would just buy whatever was on the shelf, and then I realized very quickly that that was hugely annoying. Every time I went to the range, I had to re-zero with whatever ammo I had taken. And so when I went out to the range, I either re-zeroed or I had to relearn my dope and the influence of the wind and so on and so forth and the environmentals on each bullet as I was trying to reach 1,000 yards, for instance. So that is kind of a more extreme case, you could say, because again, we're shooting out to 1,000 yards. Most people can't even shoot past 100 or 200. But if you can train with the same ammo consistently, it's just going to improve your proficiency with whatever weapon platform you're shooting with, right? Now, it doesn't matter so much with like pistols, like 9mm. Like, I just shoot whatever FMJ I can get my hands on. Obviously, like I said in my last video, you still want to make sure that whatever ammo you're buying, like if you're using for self-defense or home defense, you want to make sure that if you're using hollow points, that those run through your gun properly and that your gun can cycle them properly, because some guns have trouble, feeding critical duty with that rubber tip on the front. I had a Kimber back in the day, a Kimber Micro 9, that would not feed. That bullet tip would just go straight in the feed ramp and just get stuck and jam up the slide. So I'm glad I learned that before I was started to carry that. And you want to make sure and just vet your tools, guys. Make sure that they work with the ammunition you're carrying. But again, I'll just reiterate one more time. I don't want to drag this on too long, but at the end of the day, the more consistent you could be with one rifle, with the same ammunition, with the same optic and the same reticle, the less you're going to have to think about it. And if you ever do need to use it in a upholding freedom or defending your life situation, you're going to have the confidence. It's going to be muscle memory. And I know, an inch or 2 inches off at 100 yards isn't going to make a difference at self-defense distances like 5 or 10 yards, but that just goes to show a lot of people don't even train their holdovers. That's something I've been trying to train a lot more recently. And if you go to the range, you'll realize if your gun's zeroed for 5,200 yards or if it's zeroed for 100 yards, then you have to hold above where you want to impact at 10 yards or 7 yards, for instance. So that's another thing a lot of guys don't train, and I think that gets overlooked quite often is holdovers as well. But if you can find a good value, I mean, I'm not saying like the cheapest ammo, find a good value ammunition like a 77 grain from AAC. I really like that because it's a hollow point ammunition, super accurate, but it's still only 60 cents a round as of early 2024, and buy as much of the same ammo as you can. Now, that's not to say when I'm running speed drills up close, like I'm still mostly running FMJ because, well, at this point, the AAC is as cheap as what I could find federal 55 grain ball ammo for at the local gun store. So I really should just be buying all the AAC stuff, but you got to order it online. And if I run low and I need something just from filming a review, I'll just go pick up 1,000 rounds at the local gun store. But at this point, they're the same price. So I really should just buy all that stuff. But if the FMJ, let's say, was 10 cents cheaper around, it's not to say that you can't use that when you're training up close or training transitions at a 20 or 30 yard distance. But when it comes to zeroing your rifle and starting to train long range, which I think is it's a huge weakness in a lot of prepared citizens, guys who are trying to train because they just don't have anywhere to go. They don't own enough land, or they live in the city, whatever it might be, and it's just too cost prohibitive or time prohibitive to drive somewhere that allows you to shoot that far. But I highly encourage you guys. There's a lot of states out west that have a lot of BLM land that you can shoot on legally. Just gotta be smart. There's rules and whatnot, but just look those rules up, and you can go shoot on government federal land for free. Set up your own target and shoot as far as your heart desires. So I highly encourage you guys, pack a cooler, get a water, pack a jug of water, and drive out somewhere where you can try to practice long range. And that's my piece of advice. I just try to stop training so much with all my different weapon platforms. I'm really focusing in on one DMR, which is the HKMR 762 for those long distances. Uh, and because it's got a specific reticle, it's got the Horse Trimmer 3 in there with federal 168 grain Sierra Gold Medal Match King. That's the 308 ammo that I have found the most success with, the most consistency with, and it is pretty expensive. But if I'm taking those rifles out, I'm not really doing much mag dumping. I'm really just working on my dope, working on my shooting technique, and practicing reading the wind and whatnot. So, but if you can, try to find a good ammunition that's a good value and buy as much of it as you can possibly afford. incrementally over time, so you don't, be financially responsible, guys. The last thing you need is your wife up your back about how much money you spend on guns or ammo. We all know how that feels. If for all of my married kings out there, but for all you single guys, enjoy it while it lasts. But even you guys, don't put yourself in a debt to try to panic buy. Or I know it's hard. I've given into that in the past, especially during the COVID years when it was very scary seeing the ammo shelves completely empty and everything out of stock. That's why we try to prepare incrementally over time ahead of those events so that you don't have to ever put yourself in that position again, like I had been at the time with the 308 ammo, spending all kinds of money. I mean, a lot of money on a lot of caliber or a lot of bullets that aren't necessarily my favorite or my gun doesn't really even love. Now, are they still going to work? Yeah, they're still going to work, still going to cycle, and I've shot them all through my guns, but again, when inches matter, especially at those distances, it's really important to have consistency. Now, for you reloaders out there, you're probably just like, bro, what about us? Like, yeah, a lot of people just don't have the time, the patience, or the space to get into reloading, or the money, because investing in all the equipment is expensive. And if you don't reload enough, then it takes a lot of reloading in order to get your money back, especially on calibers like 5.56. 308 maybe a little bit different, especially if you're trying to really dial in a bolt gun or something like that. But this video isn't really for you guys, because if you're reloading, then you're already way ahead of the curve and you already know all this. So this is more for the introductory level, the guys who are just getting into this stuff. That's just my 2 cents, guys. But if you enjoy these videos, I really enjoy doing them. So thank you guys for all the positive feedback in the comment section. If you want to support the channel, there's 4 ways you can do so. There's a super thanks. It's like Patreon, but right here on YouTube, right below the video description. And then you have Brownell's code RDB10 saves you 10% off at Brownell's of an order of $150 or more. And then you have Range Day Bro for merch. And then lastly, liking, commenting, subscribing, letting me know what you guys think about this stuff, letting me know what's your go-to ammunition for 5.56 or for 308, whatever it might be. Really means a lot to me, guys. I love the feedback. I love the love. That's what I'm trying to do out here, is just spread love and bring more people into the community. And I hope that comes across in these videos. So I love you guys. Keep training, and I'll talk to you soon.